You'd think the most dangerous thing on your phone is the app you're scared to click. It's not. It's the one you already trust.
I just went through a full breakdown of the 15 ways your smartphone can be turned into a weapon against you. And honestly, by the fourth one, I stopped scrolling and just sat there staring at my phone like it owed me an explanation. Because here's the thing nobody tells you when you buy a new phone. You're not just buying a device, you're buying a target. And the scariest part isn't the hackers. It's how normal, how boring, how completely invisible the entry point usually is.
Let's start where the video starts, because it's almost insulting how simple it is. Adware. Sounds harmless, right? Like, okay, some ads pop up, mildly annoying, close the tab, move on with my life. Except back in 2019, a cybersecurity firm found over 200 adware apps sitting comfortably on the Google Play Store. And these weren't obscure apps nobody used. These things had been downloaded more than 8 million times. 8 million. People thought they were grabbing a cute wallpaper, app, or a photo filter, and instead they handed their battery life, their data, and their sanity over to an ad-serving parasite. And here's what actually gets me. Google eventually pulled them. Great. Cool. But the damage was already sitting on 8 million phones by the time anyone did anything. That's not a glitch in the system. That's the system working exactly as slow as it always does.
But adware is basically the kiddie pool of this list. The moment you step into spyware, the whole tone shifts. And I want you to really sit with this next part because it's not some rogue hacker in a hoodie anymore. In 2022, researchers uncovered a spyware operation called Hermit, and it wasn't targeting random civilians for fun. It was found on phones in Italy and Kazakhstan, and it was tied back to government-level surveillance. Journalists, political figures, people whose entire job depends on privacy and confidential sources. Gone. Once Hermit was in, it could read your emails, record your actual phone calls, snap photos through your camera without you touching a thing, and the victims had zero clue this was happening. In some cases, for months. Let that sink in for a second. We're not talking about a criminal underworld operating in the shadows. We're talking about the exact institutions that are supposed to protect citizens, instead turning phones into surveillance devices against their own people. If that doesn't unsettle you a little, I don't know what will.
And then there's the keylogger, which honestly might be the most quietly terrifying entry on this whole list because it doesn't need to trick you into anything dramatic. It just needs you to type your bank password, your email login, your two-factor code, every single keystroke captured and shipped straight to a hacker in real time. Back in 2017, one keylogger operation managed to harvest credentials from over 2 million users worldwide, and the way it spread is the part that should actually scare you. It was hiding inside fake versions of apps you already trust. WhatsApp, Facebook. Apps people download without a second thought because the names feel safe. People weren't downloading sketchy underground software. They were downloading what looked like the exact same app already sitting on a billion other phones, except this one had a silent passenger recording every tap. And once those credentials were harvested, they didn't just disappear into some hacker's private stash. They got sold on the dark web. To the highest bidder, your bank login became a line item in someone else's business model.
Now here's where I think the video actually undersells how insane this next one is. Trojans get treated like old news, like a malware category from a decade ago that we've all moved past. We haven't. In 2021, a Trojan called GriftHorse quietly infected over 10 million Android phones across 70 different countries. 70. It hid inside things like car racing games, flashlight utilities, the kind of forgettable apps you download and forget you even have. And once it was in, it didn't crash your phone or steal your photos. It did something almost elegant in how sneaky it was. It silently signed victims up for premium SMS subscriptions costing up to $30 a month. Not a one-time hit.
A recurring charge, month after month, bleeding people dry in small enough amounts that most victims didn't notice for a long time. By the time researchers finally caught it, the people behind GriftHorse had already pulled in tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions, built entirely on $30 increments. Nobody thought to question on their phone bill. That's not hacking in the dramatic Hollywood sense. That's a business model. And it worked because we're all a little too comfortable ignoring the fine print on our statements.
I have to pause here because ransomware is where this stops being about money and starts being about something far heavier, and I don't say that lightly. In 2020, a hospital in Dusseldorf, Germany got hit by a ransomware attack that locked down their entire system, mobile devices included, the ones doctors were actively using to access patient records in real time. A woman in critical condition needed emergency surgery. Because of the attack, she had to be rerouted to a different hospital over 18 miles away. She died during that delay. I want you to really process what that means. This wasn't a data breach where someone's credit card number got leaked. This was a piece of malicious code that, through a chain of very human consequences, is linked to an actual human death. That's the line ransomware crossed, and once you know that story, you can't unhear it every time someone brushes off cyber attacks as just a tech problem for IT departments to handle.
Now let's talk about the one I think deserves the most attention and gets the least, because banking Trojans are operating at a level of sophistication that honestly impresses me as much as it terrifies me. These aren't clumsy scams. In 2020, a banking Trojan called EventBot was discovered actively targeting over 200 banking and payment apps, including massive names like PayPal, Barclays, Santander, and HSBC. The move here is almost theatrical. It waits for you to open your actual banking app, and then it overlays a fake screen on top of the real one, pixel perfect, so you're typing your credentials directly into the hacker's trap while thinking you're logging into your bank. But here's the part that should genuinely worry anyone who thinks two-factor authentication makes them untouchable. EventBot intercepted SMS-based two-factor codes. That extra layer of security you rely on? Bypassed, completely neutralized. Thousands of users across Europe had money pulled straight out of their accounts before security teams even caught up. This is the part of the story that makes me want to ask a genuinely uncomfortable question. If two-factor authentication, the thing we're all told is the gold standard of protection, can be quietly routed around like that, how much of our sense of security online is actually real, and how much is just a comfortable illusion we've all agreed to believe in?
Then there's stalkerware, and I'll be honest, this is the one that made me feel something closer to anger than fear. Unlike most of the other threats on this list, stalkerware doesn't need a hacker halfway across the world. It needs someone who already has physical access to your phone, someone who's supposed to be close to you. In 2019, a company called Retina X, which openly sold apps marketed for spying on spouses and partners, was exposed after a journalist discovered the company itself had been hacked. And in a brutal twist of irony, the private data of every single person being secretly monitored through those apps ended up leaked online. So think about that chain for a second. Someone installs an app to control and surveil another human being without consent, and then a security failure exposes that same victim's private life to strangers on the internet. Two violations stacked on top of each other, and the person at the center of it never even knew the first one was happening, let alone the second. This is where malware stops being a tech story and becomes a story about power, control, and how technology can be weaponized inside relationships in ways that have nothing to do with hacking skill and everything to do with trust being broken.
I want to shift gears now because SSMS malware operates on a completely different mechanism, and the speed of it is honestly what makes it dangerous. In 2021, Something called Flubot spread across Europe like an actual wildfire, starting in Spain and tearing through Germany, the UK, Poland, and Australia within weeks. The trick was almost embarrassingly simple. A text message claiming your package couldn't be delivered, with a link to track it. You click, you're infected, and then it immediately fires off that same message to every single contact in your phone. Your friends, your family, your coworkers. They see a message from you, someone they trust, and the cycle repeats. Within weeks, millions of devices were compromised. All because the malware understood something painfully accurate about human psychology. We don't question links that come from people we know. That's not a technology failure. That's an exploit of the most basic thing that makes us social creatures, and it worked at a scale that should honestly make every one of us think twice before tapping a delivery link again.
And if you're someone who's ever touched cryptocurrency, this next one might be the most gut-punching entry on the entire list. Clipper malware doesn't care about your passwords or your messages. It has one job. When you copy a crypto wallet address to send money, it silently swaps that address for the hacker's own wallet in the background. You paste what you think is your friend's address, hit send, and the funds go straight to a stranger. In 2021, a Clipper campaign hid inside a fake version of MetaMask, one of the most widely used crypto wallet apps out there. Victims downloaded what they believed was the legitimate app and lost money the moment they tried to send it. And here's the detail that makes this one uniquely brutal compared to everything else on this list. Once cryptocurrency is sent, there's no bank to call, no fraud department, no chargeback. It's gone, permanently. That irreversibility is exactly why Clipper malware has become such an efficient tool for criminals. And it's a sharp reminder that the same decentralization that makes crypto appealing is the exact same feature that makes its victims defenseless once they're compromised.
Now let's talk about the ones that feel almost like science fiction, because rootkits and Pegasus are operating on a completely different tier than everything I've mentioned so far. In 2016, researchers discovered a rootkit that wasn't downloaded by accident. It came pre-installed on cheap Android phones manufactured by a company called BLU Products and sold across the United States. Every 72 hours, these phones were silently transmitting personal data, text messages, and location information back to servers overseas. And who was buying these phones? Low-income families who couldn't afford more expensive, more secure devices. That's the part that sticks with me. The people with the least power to protect themselves ended up carrying the most exposed devices, not because of anything they did wrong, but because of a supply chain decision made far above their heads.
And then there's Pegasus, which honestly deserves its own conversation entirely, because it operates on a level most people can't even fully wrap their heads around. Built by an Israeli company, Pegasus can infect a phone with what's called a zero-click attack, meaning the victim doesn't have to tap a single link or download a single file. It just gets in. In 2021, a massive investigation revealed that Pegasus had been used to target over 50,000 people globally, including a sitting French president, a Pakistani prime minister, and multiple Indian political figures, alongside journalists from major global news organizations. Even Jeff Bezos had his phone compromised through a similar method years earlier. 50,000 targets isn't a hacking campaign anymore. That's a surveillance infrastructure, operating with a level of reach that eventually led the United States government to formally blacklist the company behind it. And I think that's the real gut check moment of this entire list. If a head of state can have his phone silently infected without clicking anything, what exactly makes any of us think our own phones are safe just because we're careful?
There's one more angle worth sitting with before we wrap this up, because it ties everything together. Fileless malware doesn't even bother saving itself onto your phone. It lives purely in memory, which means most antivirus software can't find a trace of it, and a simple restart can make it vanish while the damage it already caused stays permanent. And then there's juice jacking, which the FBI has actually issued public warnings about, where a compromised public USB charging port at an airport or a coffee shop can quietly install malware the second you plug in for what you thought was a harmless battery top-up. Ad subscription malware silently draining your account every month, and adware botnets turning your phone into an unpaid soldier in someone else's criminal ad fraud network while you sleep. And the picture becomes pretty clear. This isn't a list of 15 unrelated threats. It's a pattern. Every single one of these starts the same way. A trusted-looking app, an unexpected link, a public charging port that seemed perfectly innocent 5 seconds before you plugged in.
So here's what I keep coming back to after going through all of this. We spend so much energy worrying about the dramatic version of hacking, the masked figure typing furiously in a dark room, breaking through firewalls in real time. But almost nothing on this list happened that way. It happened because someone downloaded a flashlight app, clicked a delivery text, plugged into a random USB port because their battery hit 2% at the worst possible moment. The most dangerous malware in the world doesn't need to be brilliant. It just needs you to be a little too comfortable, a little too trusting for about 3 seconds. And the question I can't stop asking myself now is this. Out of everything sitting on your phone right now, how many of those apps have you actually stopped to question? And how many did you just trust because everyone else seemed to be using them too?
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell to the latest update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in the next video.